Hey, good evening everyone. It's Chris Wilson with Torah and Messiah YouTube channel, coming at you 6 o'clock Central Time. I wanted to discuss something that's kind of been floating around there a whole lot lately on abortions, pro-life, and against pro-life, and this notion of wanting to be against raped and pregnant. I'm going to tell you about some women who tell their stories. And it's also understandable, I should say, understandably difficult to talk about, that is rape, especially for the women who are the victims. And yet, because it's so often used as a reason for abortion, we need to take a closer look. And pregnancy due to rape is very rare, but sometimes it happens. What do we do then? What do you think? Should the woman have to carry the child to delivery? What about the child? How could he live knowing how he came to be? Wouldn't abortion be the easiest solution in this case? How can we justify that, or how can one live with knowing that the child they're carrying wasn't due to their consent, but something of forced activity, in this case rape? And these three women that share their stories in this little article I'm going to bring you is women who faced these questions firsthand. All three were raped and became pregnant, but each chose a different path, and it's a great testimony, because you should appreciate their willingness to be vulnerable and share their lives with you and me. First, let's examine the subject of rape itself, as it's just a really hard topic, and it shouldn't be for us and for those who are pro-life, but it's obviously easier said than done. But rape, pregnancy, and abortion, we've all heard that the argument that abortion must remain legal so rape and incest victims aren't forced to go through unfair pregnancies. We're often led to believe that a great number of abortions are done for these reasons. But the abortionists aren't really concerned with what's best for the victims of sexual assault. They're simply trying to manipulate a very emotional subject to their own advantage. Not too long ago, a pro-abortion advocate gave a lengthy justification for abortion based on rape. When his pro-life opponent asked, quote, "Let's say we allow abortions for rape or incest. Would you then agree to end those performed strictly for convenience?" End quote. The person still insisted that abortion should be legal for everyone, quickly showing that rape was not the issue. We don't want in any way to minimize the trauma, agony, and injustice of rape, or a woman's tremendous difficulty of faced with pregnancy, but a very distorted picture has been presented to the public, and while the emotional impact is great, the real-life facts have been conveniently forgotten. And despite what you may have heard, pregnancy due to rape is extremely rare. A one-year study in Washington, D.C. showed only one pregnancy in more than 300 rape cases. A similar Chicago study revealed no pregnancies resulting from rape in the past 9 years. Overall, less than 1% of the women who are raped become pregnant. Only 1 out of every 25,000 abortions is performed because of a pregnancy occurring from rape. More than 98% of all abortions are done simply because the mother does not want to have the baby. And the rape argument is not a new arrival. In fact, it was this very issue that led to the 1973 Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion. The case of a woman who became pregnant following a gang rape was brought to the Supreme Court. Denied an abortion under Texas law, abortion advocates rallied around her, helped her appeal to the Supreme Court, and won. Incidentally, most people are unaware that the ruling came too late for Jane Roe. She had already given birth, and the baby was put up for adoption. That child, alive today, would surely have something to say to the Supreme Court. Although some people feel it's reasonable to allow abortion in the cases of rape and incest, most haven't thought the matter through. If asked, quote, Should an innocent human being be killed for the crime of another? End quote. There's little doubt the overwhelming response would be, of course not. But through the justification of abortion for rape, the floodgates of abortion have opened and the blood of over 16 million innocent children has been poured out. So who pays? For too long, rape has been used to justify abortion and sidestepped a real issue. Is it ever right to take an innocent human life? No matter how unfair or horrible a situation may be, we can never justify killing another innocent human being to try to alleviate mental or emotional anguish. A woman who's been raped has been cruelly victimized. She ends up pregnant. Is it fair to her? No, it isn't. What then? Kill her child? Will that make things fair again? No. It is unjust for a woman to be pregnant from a rapist, but it is a greater injustice to kill the blameless child. Fortunately, in this case, injustice cannot be avoided. We must do our best to redeem the situation, forgiving the guilty and helping the innocent. As far as the well-being of the rape victim, the emotional trauma she's been through is not lessened by abortion. It's only compounded by another experience of violence. One study states, quote, in the majority of these cases, the pregnant victim's problems stem more from the trauma of rape than from the pregnancy itself, end quote. We must extend Yahweh's love for the rape victim, offering her the compassion and support she desperately needs, so desperately needs. In the rare cases when pregnancy occurs, that support and reassurance is all the more vital. But we must also expose the lies that tell a woman that abortion is the easy way out. In the words of one experienced counselor, quote, abortion does not unrape a woman, end quote. That was an article written by Sharon Bennett, researched by Bob Miller. Thank you for that. This is the story of Kay Zabolski. It was late, and I tried to hurry through the snow that January evening. Halfway through a tunnel-like underpass 1 block from home, a man jumped from the darkness and threw me to the ground. Don't make a noise, or I'll KILLU. Yeah, my child's in the car, so I got to be careful with what I'm saying here. I lay terrified as he ripped off my clothes and raped me. As a slim 16-year-old, I was no match for him. He threatened to come after me if I told anyone, so I lay motionless in a cloud of pain and nausea as he disappeared into the night. Our house was empty, and I rushed to cleanse myself of the horrible, dirty feeling that clung to me. I threw away my torn clothes, immersed myself in a hot tub, and scrubbed till my skin ached. By the time Mom got home from work, I was huddled silently in bed. I didn't dare tell anyone what happened. The next morning, I tried again to wash away the dirty feeling, but nothing worked. I lost my appetite, was haunted by nightmares, and couldn't concentrate in school. I kept looking over my shoulder, certain he was coming back for me. Somehow I thought Yahweh must not care about me. Maybe he was even punishing me. The thought of pregnancy hadn't occurred to me at the first, so for the 4 months I denied the possibility. I insisted to myself that my queasiness was just a touch of the flu, and my missed periods were due to shock. But a doctor's exam finally erased all doubt. I cried all the way home from his office. Though I could no longer hide that I was pregnant, I still didn't tell anyone about the rape. Mom had been abandoned by my dad before I was born, and she worked hard to support us. She had no idea what I was really going through, and her words couldn't comfort my hurts and fears. We'd never been very close, and I felt increasingly alone. Surprisingly, the nightmares diminished as I felt the baby move. This new life brought the first glimmer of healing from the rape. As the months passed, I started to think this child would fill the void that had ached inside me for so long. I eagerly waited for the day when I'd hold my baby in my arms. After 36 hours of labor, Robin Lynn was born. She was perfect and beautiful, and nothing could dim the love I felt for her. Mom and I worked opposite shifts at a factory, and we shared the responsibility for Robin. But I wasn't prepared for how difficult it was. The frequent feedings, the mountain of diapers, and her wakefulness at night when I was exhausted from a long day of work. The next year, my mother was hospitalized for a nervous breakdown. Since I couldn't care for Robin alone, she was placed in a foster home. I was allowed to visit on weekends, but the home was so far away I couldn't go very often. Every time I did see her, she had changed so much it frightened me. I was afraid she'd be taken from me forever, so I stole her away myself. I was too young to understand the emotional trauma Robin was going through, but a social agency helped me understand how hard it was all on her. I soon realized that the best thing I could do for Robin was to give her up. The thought tore my heart in two, but I knew nothing else would be fair for her. My uncle knew a couple who'd tried for years to have children. If I could give them the joy of a daughter and at the same time give Robin a stable family, I'd be selfish not to. Robin was 18 months old and I met her new parents on Mother's Day. We gathered her belongings and with tears streaming down my face, I kissed her goodbye. I knew I'd never see her again unless she came to find me. That was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I cried so hard and so long and almost regretted my decision. But for her sake, I knew I'd done the right thing. I loved her enough to give her up, and I've had peace in my heart about it all these years. In 1979, my life had a fresh beginning through the transforming power of Yeshua's love. I learned that Yahweh wasn't to blame for man's wrongful acts, and that he had loved me all along despite the horror that befell me. Only then was I released from the hatred for the rapist that bound my soul. When I finally understood that Messiah died for him too, and loves him just as much as he loves me, I was able to forgive and even pray wholeheartedly for the man who attacked me. The years of separation never dimmed my love for Robin, and hardly a day went by that I didn't long to hold her again in my arms. Once I found the love of Messiah, I prayed with all my heart for Robin to somehow find him too. Last spring, Robin and I saw each other for the first time in 26 years. I can't tell you the tremendous joy and excitement that was in my heart. We were all smiles, and I couldn't stop looking at each other. We were working on building a relationship at a pace we both can handle. In all honesty, it's been difficult for her to learn about her real father, but that doesn't mean she wishes she'd never been born. It's interesting that the first thing Robin said when we met was, "Boy, am I glad you didn't get an abortion." I thank Yahweh abortion wasn't legal years ago. As hard as it was to give Robin up for adoption, I'm at peace knowing I chose what was best for her, not necessarily what was easiest for me. I can live with the fact that I've been raped, but I couldn't live in peace if I had killed my child. I don't agree with those who advocate abortion for rape or incest. One violent, cruel act doesn't justify another. Our laws don't condemn rapists to death, so it's insane that we'd issue a death sentence for an innocent baby. Robin is no different and no less valuable than any other human being. In fact, I've often imagined Robin and my other daughter, born through marriage, standing together before a gathering of all the pro-abortion people. I would ask the crowd to decide which one should live. Quote, "Does one deserve to die because of the way she was conceived? Because of the sin of her father?" End quote. And here's the story of Patrick Dizou. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. What was the name of the last lady that we just read? Kay Zabolski. And this is, again, Patrick Dizou. He says, "I was 18 when I learned I had been conceived by rape. My first reaction was shock. I'd known my mother wasn't married, but I always thought she entered the relationship willingly. As a young boy, I'd felt a subtle hatred for my real father since he had left me and my mom. I felt hurt and rejected by him. Learning the truth quickly rekindled that hatred, and my heart burned with bitterness toward him. It was only after surrendering my life to Yahweh that I found peace with who I am and how I came to be. That peace came as I forgave my father, just as Yeshua had forgiven him. As a child of rape, I have a unique outlook on abortion. If abortion had been legal when I was conceived, I would not be alive. I never had a chance to love and give of myself to others. I've had wonderful opportunities to share my testimony too. Whenever someone says, 'Well, what about rape?' I have the perfect answer. Yahweh has blessed me with a wonderful wife, and we sense his call to the mission field. Yahweh has helped me go beyond just forgiving my father. I truly love him. I wish with all my heart that I could meet him. Perhaps this testimony will even come into his hands, and he'll get in touch with me. My prayer is that he too will come to know the power of Yahweh's love to restore a broken heart." Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that quick little preview there of rape and abortion and some of the stories or testimonies of those who are fortunate enough to be alive to tell it, and those who are brave enough to share their stories being the victim. And so thank you, and that is going to be part 1. I'll also get back with you on the other 2 stories of the women whenever I have the time. All right, I appreciate it. Stay tuned, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and share these videos if you like them. I thank you. Yahweh bless. Have an excellent day.
Oh, Israel.